My brother invited us, so we won't be paying rent or utilities. We're relying on you, Isla. I work in finance, and my husband, whom I'll call Bob, is a car mechanic. We live in my childhood home, but not where my parents live. It's a family business my father used to run. My brother was supposed to take over, so he studied economics and even went to Oxford. After working with my father for 5 years, my parents retired to Aspen, and my brother got the company. They passed the family home to me, and I live there with my husband. The house is conveniently located close to public transportation, hospitals, and schools. We're grateful for the gift and planned on expanding our family. However, life took an unexpected turn. My mother-in-law started visiting often, asking about my parents' finances and inheritance. It feels distasteful, and we never imagined our happy life would be disrupted like this. Not wanting to be too direct, I responded with a casual, I wonder how much. I've never really thought about it, so I don't know. I already got the house, so maybe no money. Even though I laughed it off, she insisted, that can't be true, can it? Your parents are over 57. You never know what might happen. They must have talked about their assets with you. It seemed like she was quite interested in discussing assets, and at that moment I felt she might be counting on my parents' wealth. I actually knew the amount I would inherit but chose to stay silent, thinking it's better not to share with my mother-in-law or my husband, who is close to her. Out of the blue, something unexpected happened. Without any heads up, at around 7 a.m. on a holiday, my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law's family showed up at our doorstep and moved into our house. The doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, I was greeted by a group of movers. I was taken aback and puzzled, asking, "What brings the movers here?" That's when my mother-in-law and brother-in-law's family announced, "We've decided to live here starting today, so please welcome us and take care of us." As I glimpsed their happy expressions, a sudden chill ran down my back. Just then, my husband awoke. When I inquired about the situation, he nonchalantly remarked, "What's the issue if Mom and the others shift into this house? It's quite spacious. Surely you can spare some room." He spoke as if it were entirely normal to accommodate them. I was already taken aback by us living together. But then my sister-in-law made an even more audacious statement. She asserted, "Brother Isla invited us. Since he called us, we won't be paying any rent or utilities. We're relying on you, Isla." Meanwhile, my brother-in-law started claiming different rooms without asking, stating, "This room gets great sunlight, so let us have it, Bob. Move everything out to the hallway." I felt confused in this situation. Although it's my house, they act like it's theirs, claiming and entering rooms freely. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law's family seemed to be lacking basic courtesy, particularly my sister-in-law, who once rifled through my bag without asking. If this continues, it's becoming worrisome. Enough is enough. They've taken over my room. This is my house, and it's frustrating how they act like they own the place. Normally, I don't lose my composure, but the way these people moved in without permission and treated it as if it were theirs pushed me over the edge. I couldn't stand it, so I raised my voice and told them to leave. Unexpectedly, they responded with arrogance, telling me to leave instead. Then, out of nowhere, I felt a sharp pain on my cheek. Did I just get slapped? The realization hit me seconds later, leaving me stunned and in disbelief. The throbbing pain lingered, and in that moment, something inside me snapped. I can't live with people who would treat me like this in my own house. Despite it being mine, I don't want them living here like parasites. I decided to pack up my things and leave, intending to inform my family about the situation. I needed to find a place away from home, so I rented a monthly apartment for the time being. From there, I had to commute to work. When I shared this news with my parents over the phone, I sensed their anger, especially from my usually doting dad. Despite being a strict CEO, he had always been a kind and supportive father. I didn't want to burden my retiring parents with this situation, but I had no choice. My inherited house was being taken away while I lived in the monthly apartment. I was certain that my husband and his family were freely using my house. Following the advice of my brother and father, I took action. A few days later, during my break, I checked my phone and saw numerous missed calls and messages from my husband. I knew exactly why he was trying to reach me. I contacted the water and electric companies to disconnect the utilities. Our house relies entirely on electricity, and we haven't set up solar panels yet, so there's no alternative power source. Given the current heat, living without electricity and water must be challenging. Anticipating my husband's concerns, he called just as I was about to dismiss it during my break. What's happening? There's no electricity and the water isn't working. Did you stop them? My husband's panicked voice came through the phone, making it clear he was worried. Since the house is now mine, I couldn't justify keeping the utilities on while I'm away. Turning them off seemed reasonable to avoid unnecessary bills. However, my husband was furious, insisting that I renew the contracts immediately. Just because he wanted me to renew didn't mean I was obliged to comply right away. I'm not going to agree just because they want to renew. If they wish to continue, they should use their own money. They keep saying it's my house, so I should pay, but their words and actions don't align. I have no plans to renew the contract or foot the bill. If they don't like it, they should leave the house immediately. After stating that, I ended the call as my break was ending. Later, my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and brother-in-law all called, echoing the same request. They wanted me to reconnect the electricity and water because their room was uncomfortable. They claimed it was inconvenient without water. However, I saw it as their problem, not mine. After hearing them out, I insisted they handle it on their own and hung up. Thinking their greed for money would lead them to leave soon, I was surprised that even after a week, they showed no signs of leaving. To take a stronger stance, I sought advice from my father's company lawyer and asked him to send a notice to my husband. The notice addressed the issue of trespassing since they had forcefully entered the house. Without any discussion, they drove me out of the property I owned, using it as if it were theirs. Faced with this deceitful tactic by the four of them, I mentioned the possibility of taking legal action. Curious and alarmed, my husband approached me, questioning why I received a document from a lawyer. He seemed taken aback by my decision to escalate the matter. Aware of their concern for public image, the thought of a lawsuit weighed heavily on them. While they certainly want to avoid legal involvement, giving up their current lifestyle is not an option. Hence, they are likely strategizing to convince me to let them continue as they are. Seeing through my husband's intentions, it's clear he's trying to manipulate the situation. However, I refused to entertain their proposals. I didn't give in to my husband's demands. In response, he lost his temper, forgetting he was at work, and shouted at me, telling me to stop acting all high and mighty just because things got a bit tricky. He insisted that I revert to how things were immediately and drop the idea of involving a lawyer. Despite his angry outburst, it didn't bother me at all. In fact, I found his phone call annoying, thinking about how audacious it was for him to try taking over someone else's house. No matter how much he yelled or shouted, my stance remained unchanged. If he continued to occupy the property without my consent, I was determined to take legal action. I told him to think carefully before making any moves. Despite his ongoing rant over the phone, I ignored him and hung up, considering it a waste of time. I had already consulted with my lawyer about divorce. Upon returning home, I found missed calls from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. I suspected they were reaching out to discuss settling the matter, but I remained firm in my resolve. To avoid wasting more time, I decided to block their numbers, putting an end to their incessant calls. Faced with the prospect of legal action, my husband's proud family couldn't bear the pressure. They packed their bags and left the house. Following their departure, the lawyer stepped in, facilitating smooth divorce negotiations. I took the opportunity to arrange for a house cleaning service, restoring my home to its sparkling clean state. Living separately from my husband's family and in a monthly rental was a comfortable interim arrangement. However, being back in my own home is undoubtedly the best. The house shows signs of wear in some areas, prompting me to consider renovation. Consulting with my father, he recommended a reliable contractor, and discussions about the renovation began. Living alone has proven to be incredibly comfortable. I'm not constrained by anyone, free to lounge on the sofa without fear of reprimand. I can enjoy any meal without anyone passing judgment. As I relish my current lifestyle, the prospect of renovating my home adds an exciting dimension to the newfound freedom. As I begged him, he began speaking without asking me first. It seems my ex-husband's business is facing a serious money problem, and as a result, he had to agree to a lower salary. Also, my mother-in-law isn't doing well health-wise, which stops her from working. My sister-in-law and her husband can't help much with our living costs since he doesn't have a stable job. Even though my sister-in-law is juggling several part-time jobs, most of her earnings are used to settle the debts accumulated by my brother-in-law. The situation is really hard, and my ex-husband is having a tough time making ends meet. His salary has been reduced, and it's getting harder to get by. When I heard all this, I couldn't help but think, wow, really? Despite their financial struggles, my feelings haven't changed. They entered my home without permission, did whatever they wanted, and even attempted to force me out. It's truly unbelievable. I don't feel any sympathy for those who did such a thing. Even if you're going through difficulties, it doesn't fix anything. It's your family. You need to handle it on your own. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about it. My ex-husband got even more worried when I mentioned, "Don't say things like that. We're in real trouble. We might not even afford the rent for our place, and tomorrow we could be struggling for food." "Hey, we used to be a family, right? Please help us," he pleaded, almost in tears. However, I wasn't convinced. When I faced difficulties before, he didn't lift a finger to help, and both he and my mother-in-law looked down on me. It's not just my ex-husband and mother-in-law. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law have always treated me poorly. They insulted me for my simple looks and old-fashioned beliefs, telling me to stay away because they thought my stiffness and outdated ways were affecting them. They didn't care about how much it hurt me. Speaking of my mother-in-law, she not only made things worse but also pressured me to have a baby as soon as possible. She pushed strange herbal medicines on me, scheduled unnecessary doctor's appointments, and spread rumors among the neighbors that I was a barren wife. Looking back, it was a difficult situation. My marriage had no positives. My ex-husband, once kind, turned into my mother-in-law's puppet after we wed. On the first day my mother-in-law came to our house, I was away for an appointment. She got upset and cried to my husband, saying she wanted to see Isla, but I wasn't there. Despite her tears, my ex-husband yelled at me without hearing my side of the story. She claimed to want to get along, but every time we met, she only spoke ill of me. Loudly, she said things like, "My son seems to have lost weight lately. Is it because your cooking is so bad that he can't eat properly?" This happened at home and outside, making it impossible for us to get along. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law also joined in, laughing at me. "I can't deal with people acting like this anymore. No matter what you say, my feelings won't change. I can't assist you guys, so I'm ending this call now. Please don't contact me again." I hung up the phone and blocked the new number, knowing my ex-husband might change it and try to contact me again. To avoid this, I decided to change my phone number at the store over the weekend. But before I could do that, those 4 individuals took action. They broke the promise made by the lawyer and suddenly showed up at my house at 10 p.m. They were banging on the door, yelling without considering the late hour. I called out, "What's the matter at this hour? Please go back home, it's causing a nuisance to the neighbors." When I went to open the door, they seemed ready to barge in, so I thought of talking through the intercom. However, the 4 of them didn't care and continued banging on the door, creating a ruckus. I couldn't believe I was dealing with people so out of control. Left holding my head in my hands, I seriously contemplated calling the cops. Upon hearing sirens nearby, it appeared that a neighbor had intervened. The group, taken aback by the sudden police sirens, assumed I had alerted the authorities and attempted to run away. Unfortunately, a gathering of people had already formed, blocking any possibility of escape. As a result, the responding officers escorted all 4 individuals to the police station. I was questioned about what happened and explained all the details. The news about my ex-husband and his friend's actions quickly spread around the neighborhood. It was discovered that one of my ex-husband's colleagues was in the group, and by the following day, everyone at the office knew about the situation. He was already facing difficulties with a reduced salary, and involving the police only made things tougher for him at work. Due to this, my ex-husband lost his job and couldn't pay for his apartment anymore. Money problems caused a rift between him and his sister's family, leading to them no longer living together. Right now, Bob lives in government-assisted housing with his mother, working several part-time jobs to cover their expenses. Even his mother, dealing with financial challenges, has taken up part-time work a few days a week, trying hard to earn some money.